Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
My son is so violent, he could kill me.
I'm tired of this.
A mother says she fears for her life.
I sleep with a loaded shotgun.
You're talking about shooting your son.
This is garbage. Leave.
Did you try to run your girlfriend over with a car?
No, sir.
There were children and teachers in the area. What the hell are you doing running your car through a fence?
Plus,
destruction in the streets of Ferguson.
What was your reaction when you saw the response to your son's death?
after years of silence, Michael Brown's mother speaks out.
Has anyone ever apologized to you?
No. Apologizing to me would be to charge a murderer with a murder.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Today is a very important show. We're talking about young men who are from different backgrounds and different parts of the country. But they all have one thing in common: a fateful encounter with the police. Some survived and some did not. I'm going to ask you to suspend judgment for a minute, actually for the entire hour, because these hard-to-stomach stories you're about to hear are more common than you think. First, I'm going to start off with Angie and her husband, Jerry. They say she's terrified of her 19-year-old son, Nick, who is facing 5 felony and 2 misdemeanor charges for allegedly trying to run over an ex-girlfriend with his car when he crashed through a fence on a schoolyard after she broke up with him. Stepdad Jerry says he recently purchased a Ruger SR-22 handgun for his wife, Angie, to keep by the side of her bed at night, loaded just in case she needs to protect herself against her own son, Nick. Well, what else is going on behind closed doors in this home to make this mother feel that her son could snap and kill her one day? Well, take a look.
My son Nick is so violent, he could kill me. Nick is the nastiest person I have ever known in my life. He told me that I was trash. He feels I was not a good mom.
Black sheep in the family. You don't give a crap.
I feel like I'm fighting the devil. There's an emptiness in his eyes that's scary. I feel hatred towards Nick sometimes. I sleep with a loaded shotgun because I'm afraid of what Nick might do. The most serious incident was this past fall. He and his girlfriend were about to break up, and he decided that he was going to take his new car and run through the fence in the play yard where she was. He tore the whole entire fence down. Jerry is Nick's stepdad. It got worse when Jerry came along.
Always is stuff for James. Always. I'm tired of this.
When Nick was 14, Angie and I were arguing, and Nick punched me in the face 4 or 5 times, like that. When Nick was 16, he lunged at me and pushed me into a back door, broke the window out.
A week ago, I kicked Nick out of our house. We drove up in the driveway, and we saw him with an airsoft gun. We told him that he was not going to bring that gun in our house. We got into a huge fight.
You kicking me out. This is garbage.
He's not welcome in my home. 5 days ago, I purchased a handgun for Angie. I really think that he could possibly kill someone.
I fear for my life. I feel like there's no way out for me.
If it came to the point where I had to protect my wife and the only course of doing so would be to shoot him, I would do it.
We're talking about your child here. You're buying firearms. You're talking about shooting your son. What's going on?
There is a lot of anger between me and Nick. There is a lot of violence. There's fighting. When he ran his car through that fence, and with no regard to anybody's life, I mean, that was terrifying to me. Nick treats me like he hates me. As he's gotten older, it's gotten worse.
Okay, what do you think? One of the last things you said in the tape, if it comes to it, I'll kill him.
I'm afraid for my wife, Dr. Phil. He is that volatile.
Did you hear what you said? You said, I will shoot my wife's son.
Yes, sir.
I'll kill him.
The last thing that I want to do is hurt anyone. The first priority on my mind is I have to protect my wife.
If you hear nothing else, hear this. There are some things you cannot take back. You can't take back bullets.
I understand that.
You got a shotgun, you're sleeping with a shotgun.
Yes.
And you felt like maybe you couldn't get it quick enough, so that's why you felt like you needed a handgun. I also want to tell you that the power of language is really underestimated. You've described him as evil.
Yes.
You've described him as the devil.
I feel like I'm looking at the devil.
Do you really mean to say that you believe that your son is demonically possessed?
At the time that I'm looking at him, when we are in confrontation, yes, I do feel like I am fighting the devil.
Wow.
And I believe if it's not Satan himself, it's definitely his work.
Well, all of you in this room should be scared. Nick has a different take on this family issue, of course.
I would say my relationship with my mom is garbage. I hate my family. I don't want anything to do with them. My mom says a lot of disrespectful things to me.
You're a nasty person.
She told me that she wished she could get rid of me like she did my father. She's called me a piece of I have no relationship with my mom at all because of my stepdad, Jerry. I think Jerry is a piece of crap. I think the relationship with mom took the turn for the worst when I was 14 and there was a fight. I came out of my room. I hear, you know, this, that, and cussing my mom out. And then I look at my stepdad and I say, you're not gonna talk to my mom that way. I punched him over and over again. And the cops came. It's safe to say she took Jerry's side. And that's when she lost me. I then knew that I had no mom to go to, no stepdad to go to. I was on my own at that point. I want my mom to realize that she's hurt me. I feel like I'm the black sheep of the family.
Well, Nick, I'm glad to meet you, I think.
Yeah, pretty scary.
Did you try to run your girlfriend over with a car?
No, sir, no, sir. My car was 40 feet past where she was. I went and drove past her. No.
There were children and teachers in the area.
Yes, sir.
What the hell are you doing running your car through a fence?
I decided I wanted to kill myself. She had left me, and I felt like my whole life everyone's just left me, and there's no point for me to be alive.
The police report tells a different story.
Oh, yeah.
The female stated that when she was walking back across the playground, she saw him coming, spinning tires and running extremely fast. She stated she started running to her car. He then jumped on her hood as she was driving away. Did you go jump on her hood?
No, sir. What happened was I put on her hood like that, and I even put my hands up and said, please just talk to me.
You go screeching your car up and crashing through a fence. So she wants to get away from you, which sounds like a pretty good idea given your judgment at the time.
I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, Nick's brother Tyler says even though he witnessed Nick pinning their mother to the wall in anger and heard about his brother doing the same to their grandmother in a separate incident, he says his brother is misunderstood. Let's hear from him when we come back.
Both my mom and Nick antagonize each other. I heard my mom scream, and I rushed into the room, and Nick had pushed my mom onto the wall. I think my mom is overreacting when she fears for her life.
And later,
I'm homeless right now. I have nowhere to go, and it's sad that I'd rather be homeless than live in my own home.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. They claim a stranger is obsessed with their twin daughters.
She made up a complete lie that she's their mom. My girls are in picture frames all over her house.
Who is this woman?
we found her.
And what happens when they come face to face?
How did hundreds of pictures of their twins get on your Facebook page?
I honestly don't know. You've claimed my girls as your own, and it's gonna stop.
That's tomorrow.
I control my temper very well until a certain point. I can take so much, but after that point, I just explode.
I don't know how to help Nick anymore. I've tried everything. I don't want to give up on him, but it's getting to the point where I don't know what else to do for Nick.
Angie says her 19-year-old son, Nick, has a long history of irrational and volatile behavior. A few months ago, her 20-year-old son, Tyler, said he was tired of her dedicating her life to fixing Nick's problems.
I don't think my brother Nick is a monster. He's just misunderstood. Nick has a good heart, but the circumstances that have been placed in his life cause him to have a jaded view of people around him. Jerry's relationship with Nick is very toxic. Nick feels as if my mom chose Jerry over him.
So you're gonna tell Jerry to make me get out? I'm not gonna be a prisoner in my own home.
I think my mom is overreacting when she fears for her life because of Nick. I definitely don't agree with the fact that my mom and Jerry feel as if they need a gun to protect themselves from their own son. I don't think Nick would purposely hurt my mom.
Tyler, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What do you have to say about all this?
I completely agree that they have done everything that they can to help Nick, but at the same time, I feel as if Nick isn't a monster. Like I said in my interview, you know, Nick is misunderstood. I think he has a lot of deep pain, you know, from past things in his life that have not been dealt with over time.
Once Angie knew she was coming to the show, she decided to record her son, Nick, in order for me to hear his outrageous behavior toward her.
I'm done!
Then be done. Leave.
Oh my God, there it is! Leave! 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 Let me go out here and get hit by a car and see if you don't feel like crap. Have you ever thought that maybe I'm so off because you haven't said stay? You haven't said I want you, Nick. You haven't said I'm your mom. I love you.
You're a nasty person.
I'm a nasty person.
I just can't handle it anymore, Nick. That's the God's honest truth.
What do you think about that as you listen back to it?
There are obviously things that I've said that I regret out of my own pain and anger. It's easy for everybody to judge and say, I can't understand why you're so scared of him or why he does this or does that, but nobody sees the things that Nick does or how he treats me when we're behind doors. I feel like I'm a caged animal and he is sticking me every day. If Nick hates me as much as he lets on, could he hurt me that way?
I have a test for you here. I want you, for me, to argue Nick's point of view.
Dr. Phil, I'm not quite certain that it's really feasible for either of us to argue his point of view because...
Really? Why is that?
The thought processes that I've seen him go through are not the thought processes that a rational person has.
Oh, I don't think that's necessarily true. If I'm arguing Nick's point of view, I got to say, you know, things haven't always been great with me. I mean, I understand Dad left very young, and, you know, that's kind of hard to deal with. But, you know, you've done a pretty good job, and I haven't always been a perfect son, and I know I created you trouble even when I was young. But, I mean, I was doing the best I could, and you had my back, and I really appreciate that. And then, when I was 10, you had to bring him in. And I resented that because you were mine until then. And then when I was about 12, things changed because I thought, you know, maybe he could be the father figure I didn't have. And I thought that was great for a while. And then when I was about 12, he took a belt and he beat me with it till I had whelps on me. And that kind of changed. I resented that, and I've never gotten over it. And it seems like if there's a choice to be made, I lost, and I lose every day. It seems like the only thing I can do to get your attention is make noise. And so do I yell and scream? Yeah, when I do, I get your attention. It doesn't seem like I can do it any other way. I just feel really lonely. And so I'm just always angry. I don't know why, but I'm just always angry. And if that comes across as evil, I'm sorry. I'm just really hurt.
So how do you do that?
I love you more than anything, and
I want a relationship with you. I would die for a relationship with you.
And later, after years of silence, Michael Brown's mother speaks out.
Has anyone ever apologized to you?
No. Apologizing to me would be to charge a murderer with a murder.
My mom says I have a mental disorder.
Your children have been removed from the home.
I'm in Hollywood right now, so how can I worry about my children?
A family in crisis.
I've been worried about your children.
Why don't you take them then, little witch?
I feel like I care about your kids more than you do.
Off before I hit you on stage.
Can I move my seat, Dr. Phil?
Yeah, actually sit her next to my hypocritical mother.
Tell me how this all looks to your mother from her point of view.
I wouldn't really treat me any different if I were her. I know I say stuff to her. I know I...
Tell her how she must feel.
Probably feel like you...
Look at her and tell her how she must feel.
I feel like you've done everything you possibly can to help me. You think I don't appreciate what you do. You think I just don't care, that I'm this person that has no feelings at all for you, that just wants you to fall in a hole or just wants you to just, you know, die. And I love you more than anything, and I want a relationship with you. I would die for a relationship with you. I miss my best friend, Mom. I want you back. I'm tired of always having to go through him to see you. I'm tired of going through life alone, Mom. I never had you to go to. I know I don't make it easy. I know I say stuff I shouldn't. I'm sorry. I love you, Mom.
I love you too, Nick. I've always loved you. I've always wanted the best for you.
I'm homeless right now. I have nowhere to go, and it's sad that I'd rather be homeless than live in my own home.
Can we agree that there's some unfinished emotional business that might be causing some of these issues rather than demonic possession?
Yes.
Could we cross that one off? That would be progress, right?
Yes.
I want to introduce Dr. Frank Lawless down here. He's the chairman of the Dr. Phil Show Advisory Board. He's the co-founder of the Lawless PNP Center. And a good solid diagnosis is really important, even if the diagnosis is no diagnosis, right, Frank?
Absolutely. And the kind of pain that has been demonstrated here, I think has probably not a real psychiatric diagnosis, but more of a developmental problems that begin to escalate and consequently become mammoth.
I'm going to offer to send Nick to the PNP Center, which is in Dallas, and just do a full workup on Nick, head to toe, top side, just everything. And then based on that, we can make some decisions as to what to do. I think you need to break your pattern. For example, this is Kristen Hayes right here. I invited Kristen to come here today. She's the outreach director for the Wingate Wilderness Therapy Program. And I asked Kristen to come here today because I'm going to make it available to you should you decide that it's something you'd like to call timeout and go put yourself in the shop for a while, break your pattern, and really get focused on yourself. And I think this family needs a paradigm. I think you need some guidelines on how to redefine this family unit. And I'm willing to get you some help to do that. And this is not an evil stepfather here. We've talked to him, interviewed him individually. He cares deeply about both of you boys. He was very critical of your behavior. He had not a bad word to say about you as a person. True?
Yes, sir.
And I think we have so much to work with here. So let me bring all these resources together. But I feel like we've made tremendous progress here today. Fair enough? Do you? Do you?
Yes, sir.
We doing better?
Yes, sir.
All right, coming up next, you're going to meet another mother of a son who was only 1 year younger than Nick when a parent's worst nightmare happened. He was shot dead by a police officer and his body was left on the street for hours. How this young man died is still the source of a nationwide criticism and controversy. We'll talk to his mother after the break.
Ferguson, Missouri is a city on edge.
The official cause of death for Mike Brown was gunshot wounds to the head and chest.
The day my son was murdered, my sister called me and she said, they shot Mike.
Breaking news, we are monitoring protests across the United States.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
A man thrown to the ground tries to tell arresting officers he's in trouble right before he dies.
Angry over the grand jury decision not to indict an NYPD officer in the death of Eric Garner.
Police have descended on one Ferguson neighborhood tonight after a teenager was shot and killed by a police officer.
A week-long series of protests over the fatal police shooting of unarmed 18-year-old Michael Brown continued.
Another police shooting, this one in Cleveland.
Police say when they got to the scene, they saw 12-year-old Tamir Rice with a gun. The officer shot him in the torso.
Protesters in Baltimore are demanding answers this morning over the death of a black man while in police custody. 25-year-old Freddie Gray suffered a spine injury during his arrest, captured on cell phone video.
Large protests are expected over the weekend, and Freddie Gray's funeral is scheduled for Monday.
One of the young men in the video you just saw was 18-year-old Michael Brown, who was shot 6 times and killed by an officer on August 9th, 2014. His death sparked riots in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, and protests around the country, with demands that the U.S. Department of Justice step in.
Ferguson, Missouri is a city on edge.
Saturday afternoon, Michael Brown is shot and killed.
Officer Darren Wilson said Brown grabbed him and hit him during a struggle at Wilson's police car.
The medical examiner for St. Louis County that the official cause of death for Mike Brown was, quote, gunshot wounds to the head and chest.
Rioters looted stores. They're angry about the deadly police shooting of an unarmed teen. A witness claims Brown had his hands up when he was killed.
U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder is in Ferguson, Missouri, promising an aggressive investigation.
Big development of the day. No charges against the Ferguson, Missouri police officer who shot and killed an unarmed black teenager.
Reaction to the grand jury's decision left destruction in the streets of Ferguson this morning.
Mike Brown's family is demanding justice.
The family of Mike Brown promises to continue to fight. This time, though, the fight comes in the form of a civil wrongful death lawsuit.
We've always felt from the very beginning that Officer Darren Wilson did not have to shoot and kill Mike Brown Jr.
Michael Brown's mother, Leslie, has written a book titled Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil: The Life, Legacy, and Love of My Son, Michael Brown. She is speaking out for the first time about who her son really was in an in-depth, exclusive interview.
I want everyone to know how my son lived because they know how he died. Mike was my first child and the oldest of my 4 kids I raised as a single parent. We called him Mike. He was just like a big teddy bear. He was 6'4", 289 pounds. In elementary school, all the way up through high school, he received certain honors and was recognized for being really gifted in visual arts. After Mike graduated high school, he wanted to go to college. The day my son was murdered, my life changed forever. I was at work and my sister called me. She was crying and she said, they shot Mike.
I'm so terribly sorry for your loss. When you got this phone call from your sister,
and she was crying already. And she said, they shot Mike.
When you got to the scene, What did you see when you got there?
I saw some of my family. And then I saw, worship.
Was that when you first knew that it was him and that he was gone?
I asked them police to look at his body and look at his tattoo, look at something that I know about him to tell me if that was my son. I wanted them to tell me, not my sister and anybody else that was out there.
On the book you've written, Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil, The Life, Legacy, and Love of My Son, Michael Brown, on page 6, you say Mike wasn't a criminal who deserved to be shot like a dangerous animal. He was a good boy who cared about the right things, and family and friends were at the top of his list. He didn't have a police record. He never got in trouble. So this was a surprise to you that he had had this confrontation with the police on this day?
Yes.
This was out of character for him?
Very.
What was your reaction when you saw the response to your son's death?
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. He's a stranger obsessed with their twins.
How did pictures of their twins get on your Facebook page?
I don't know. You've claimed my girls as your own, and it's gonna stop.
That's tomorrow.
This is the spot where he died. In the middle of the street is where his body lay for a very long time. This is a plaque that they dedicated to my son, just for him. He just was such a light in my life, so I picked this poem about Afterglow. It says, I would like the memory of Michael Brown to be a happy one. He left an afterglow of smiles when life was done. He was a glow. And he did leave a mark on everybody.
That was Leslie at the memorial of her son, Michael Brown, who was killed by a police officer on August 9th, 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri. Now, it's important to note that on November 24th, 2014, a grand jury decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death. That decision sparked days of riots in the streets of Ferguson and, in fact, across the entire country. Were you surprised at the reaction of the community and the entire country at what took place?
Yes, I was.
What was your reaction when you saw the outpouring and the response to your son's death?
You know what, when I first saw it, I couldn't wrap my mind around it because I was in such disbelief. And conversations became how often this happens. And that, to me, told me why I saw this big impact.
Why do you think this was the event that had such a profound effect instead of some other?
I really can't say. I really can't say why my son was picked to die that day and why it was going to be a big thing over it. I can't tell you that.
Has anyone ever apologized to you?
No.
Nobody from the Ferguson Police Department, the city?
No. Apologizing to me would be to charge a murderer with a murder. Making sure he's convicted and prosecuted. That's the only way you can apologize to me for what happened to my son.
To give us an inside peek into police practices and tactics is retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Now, she has written a book about her 20 years on the force titled Black and Blue, The Creation of a Manifesto. So go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. I appreciate that. We see an officer who uses deadly force as a first resort rather than a last resort. To fire as many rounds as he did at Mike Brown and then say that he was in fear for his life. I mean, after you fire a round and you hit somebody and they're bleeding and they're injured, how are you then still fearful? What I see is what I like to refer to as contempt of cop, and that is when an officer tells you to do something and you don't do it, there's a price to pay. And that price can sometimes be your life. Police officers receive an inordinate amount of training. And one of the things that we are trained is escalation and de-escalation of force. I can only use that force necessary to overcome resistance. And a mouth, a potty mouth, you won't shut up, you won't turn around, you won't get out of the street, you won't whatever, does not then require me to shoot you.
Okay, but I don't want to give young people in America a wrong message here. If we allow young people in America to think they don't have to obey law enforcement, that's a wrong message to send.
I'm a big proponent of comply. I say it all the time when I speak. I'm a mother of 4 sons, and I tell my sons all the time how to comport themselves when the police stop you. But you do not confront, you do not refuse to do, because it will end badly for you.
We're going to add another mother who lost her son at the hands of police, but fought back in a different way, which resulted in a very different outcome. She will join the discussion next.
Zach was shot in the left rear shoulder and the side. We couldn't understand how he could have been trying to run the officer over and be shot from the side and the rear. And we felt the police were lying to us.
On July 26, 2015, 19-year-old Zachary was sitting in his car in a parking lot during a first date when police approached them during an attempted marijuana sting in Seneca, South Carolina. Now, his mother, Angie, says she was told that Zachary tried to run over the officer with his car, so the officer opened fire. Having a hard time believing the officer's account, Angie says she set out to find the truth.
What I would like for people to know about Zachary is that he was a good kid, and he didn't deserve this.
The parents of an upstate teen shot and killed by a police officer make an emotional vow to continue fighting for justice. Paul and Angie Hammond's 19-year-old son, Zachary, was shot and killed in July.
On July 26, 2015, my son Zachary was shot and killed by a police officer. He was unarmed and shot twice. We were told that Zach had tried to run the officer over and that he had to shoot him in self-defense. Then we were told that Zach was shot in the chest. Something wasn't quite right. We went to the coroner's office and we found out that that was not the case. Zach was shot in the left rear shoulder and the side. We couldn't understand how he could have been trying to run the officer over and be shot from the side and the rear. And we felt the police were lying to us. My husband and I went through hell and back to find the truth.
I wrote to the Justice Department because somebody had to get involved. And within 1 day, they opened an investigation.
In order to find the truth, we needed to see the dash cam video. We fought for 3 months to get the video released. When I finally saw the video of Zachary being shot, I knew the police had lied. The video proved that my son did not try to run the officer over and that he should still be alive. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to see in my life. No mother should have to investigate her own son's death.
We filed a civil suit. And on March 30th, 2016, that civil suit settled, and the family was awarded $2,150,000.
No amount of money will ever bring back my son.
When you were told he was shot in the front, right, and then found out he was shot in the back of the left shoulder, right, that meant he was shot as he was pulling away. What was the explanation when you found out it was different than you were being told?
2 days after the shooting, we went to the coroner's office and saw the body, and the shots were clearly in the back. We also knew that the narrative that was being put forth in the press by the police chief was false, that the car was coming at him and that the officer had to shoot him in the chest. And Zachary was clearly pulling away. No crime had been committed. All Zachary was doing was leaving a scene. We had an obligation to our client, my client, Zachary Hammond, who couldn't speak for himself. And we brought a civil suit immediately because with the power of a civil suit, you get discovery. You can subpoena. you get the right to depose. And we noticed the deposition of that officer, and immediately he wouldn't sit for a deposition because he'd have to take the Fifth Amendment. And so you run a parallel track with civil litigation and the potential criminal litigation.
Why do you think this happened?
I think he was mad. I think the officer was mad because Zach didn't do what he said.
Well, Leslie, you have a civil trial scheduled for October, right?
Supposedly.
We reached out to Officer Darren Wilson, the Ferguson City Council, the Ferguson Police Department, the Department of Justice, as well as the Seneca, South Carolina Police, and Officer Mark Tiller. We have not received a response as of today. We're going to check in with a former guest whose son was shot in the driveway of their affluent home in Houston, Texas. What did she do without her son's knowledge to continue their fight after they left this stage a few years ago? You don't want to miss this coming up. Show without you, our studio audience.
If you are going to be in the Los Angeles area and you would like free tickets, go to drphil.com and click on Be in the Audience.
Because we have a lot of fun here, don't we?
Or you can call 323-461-PHIL. That's 323-461-7445.
Marion was here a few years ago with her husband, the former Major League Baseball player, Bobby Tolan, and their son, Robbie. Now, at the time, Robbie was struggling with lots of anger after he was shot by a police officer in the driveway of his parents' home in an affluent section of Houston, Texas. Here's a look at what happened when they last appeared on the show. Robbie planned to follow in his father's famous footsteps and become a Major League Baseball player until a bullet fired from a police officer's gun ripped through his chest and destroyed his dream.
It was a Bel Air PD sergeant convinced he was staring at two suspects getting out of a stolen SUV.
The vehicle turned out not to be stolen.
So they approached you because they thought you had stolen a car. Mm-hmm. And whose car was it?
It's mine. Another officer walked over to my mom and grabbed her and threw her up against the garage door. Then turned around and I said, "Get your hands off my mom." He just drew his gun and shot me.
Well, after the show, Marion says she filed an appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court and did not tell her husband or her son. She was a mom on a mission.
The U.S. Supreme Court reinstates a lawsuit filed by a Bel Air man shot by police on the porch of his family's home.
For 7 years, they have been in and out of court after Tolan was shot in his parents' front yard.
He sued the Bel Air Police Department and Sergeant Jeffrey Cotton, but a U.S. district judge ruled Tolan did not prove Sergeant Cotton had violated his constitutional rights. The decision was upheld by the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, but today, the U.S. Supreme Court reinstated Tolan's case.
The lawsuit claims Tolan's civil rights were violated and that he was racially profiled.
We need to continue to work to affect change. Until that happens, young black men unarmed are going to keep getting shot until we do something about it.
Well, joining us now is Marion via Polycom. Marion, you took this battle to the Supreme Court, and who wrote the ultimate opinion?
Judge Scalia, who it was his only vote for a civil rights case in the United States Supreme Court.
You were disappointed with the settlement itself, but you do think the case has set a precedent for future families, so you think that's an important finding.
Absolutely. The way it's going to help families is that now the courts cannot use summary judgment and give police officers qualified immunity simply because they are police officers. That has been used to help all cases. It's Tolan versus Cotton is now case law. It's a law.
Well, and that's a very important finding. And Marion, thank you so much for sharing that update with us. And please give our best to Robbie, will you?
I will. Thank you so much. And Leslie, it's good to see you. I'm proud of you.
All right, before we go, let's take a moment to remember the two young men whose mothers are here today. Here's Angie talking about her son, Zachary.
I think Zachary's future could have been great. He was very bright and had a good heart. He was just He was an amazing kid. Zachary was very funny. One memory that I'll never forget, he was 4, and we were on our way to school, and the moon was still out. I said, "Look, Zach, there's a full moon." And Zach said the moon was full because he ate a lot of cookies. I have saved a lot of Zach's texts. I can't bear to get rid of them. I love both of y'all so much. I know I gave y'all both such a hard time, and I'm sorry. I wish I could restart, but I don't know how. This was Zach's last text to me, and I texted him and said, "Love ya, miss ya." And he said, "I love you too." That was the last time that I got a text from him.
And here's Leslie and her family talking about her son, Michael.
I want the world to know that Mike was caring. He did come from a family that loved him.
I'm Mike's grandfather. My best memory of Mike is just how smart he was. He can just take things and put them together out the box. He's gonna be somebody. A week later, he was going to college. His future was unlimited. It was just taken away from him.
I'm Mike's aunt. Me and Mike were close. We talked about a lot of things. He talked to me about school, girlfriends.
I am Mike's grandmother. My best memory of Mike was the day that he brought me that diploma home.
He just was like, "I did it." And I said, "Well, good, I'm happy, and I hope you did it for you." I was really proud of him. It changed my family because we never thought something like this would happen.
I want to thank all of my guests today. Special thanks to Dr. Frank Lawless and Kristen Hayes, Outreach Director for Wingate Wilderness Therapy in Utah. Also special thanks to retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey and attorney Eric Bland. Leslie's book is Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil, The Life, Legacy, and Love of My Son, Michael Brown. And it comes out today, and everyone in the audience is going home with a copy of the book. Thanks to Reagan Arts. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Leslie, thanks.
Weather was the last time. I've always been naive. Call it.
Ooh, you know we gon' get